Oh boy, you've heard the phrase political football before. Nobody does political football like the Southeastern Conference. And it may have reached a new peak yesterday in where else? Baton Rouge, Louisiana, as the governor. I'm not going to attempt a Cajun accent. I'm not going to go Brian Kelly on you. But the governor had a few things to say about the LSU coaching search, who's going to conduct it, who will not conduct it, about the state of college football coaching contracts, about agents. And there you'll see on your screen, well, three of those people you recognize, of course. There is super agent on the telephone, Jimmy Sexton, who represents a lot of people in college football. Not the guy to his left as you're looking, or his right, your left as you're looking at the screen, Brian Kelly, the now former coach at LSU. He had much happier times. That's a picture from his introductory press conference in Baton Rouge. And, of course, the gentleman on the right is the guy everybody wants to hire. He's going to be coaching about 6 different football teams next year, Lane Kiffin. And if you don't recognize the person as you're looking at the screen, second from the right, that is Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. And we're going to talk about what Governor Landry had to say yesterday, because it is the talk of the college football world. It's almost as if we've forgotten they're still playing football on the field. So many of us, as I'm going to do today, and I will tie it to the field, are talking about coaching searches, because there are big ones afoot at Florida, at LSU, at Arkansas, at Penn State, and potentially others to come. Looking at you, Auburn, perhaps. Is there a loser leave town game coming to the Plains on Saturday night? We'll get into that as well. Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Skarbinski, a.k.a. Scarbo, and this is ScarboKnows. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to executive producer Brendan Martin, who keeps the trains on the tracks here at the Sidelines.live network, does a fantastic job. So many great shows on the network. I urge you to check them all out. And also check out our sponsor. Shout out to Money Management Services. They are Birmingham's financial services firm. They are a fee-only business, which sets them apart. They're also a family-owned business, which sets them apart even more. The Rice family has been in business in Birmingham since 1992. For football reference, that's the year Alabama won the national championship with Gene Stallings as head coach. They are good people, and they will take great care of you. We'll hear more from them later in the show. Okay, let's get into it. You know, I had heard the name Jeff Landry before yesterday. Didn't know much about the Louisiana governor. Found out a whole lot yesterday. Let's take a look at him. There he is. Hello, Governor. Governor Landry. That is a snapshot from yesterday's press conference, but we cannot do justice to what occurred yesterday in that press conference without hearing it for ourselves, without seeing it for ourselves. So let's watch and listen to Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry in Baton Rouge yesterday.
The first question is absolutely correct. We are not going down a failed path. And I wanted to tell you something. This is a pattern. The guy that's here now that wrote that contract cost Texas A&M $70-something million. Right now, we got a $53 million liability. We are not doing that again. And you know what? I believe that we're going to find a great coach. I mean, maybe we'll let President Trump pick it. He loves winners. You know, I'm not going to be picking the next coach. But I can promise you, we're going to pick a coach, and we're going to make sure that that coach is successful, and we're going to make sure that he's compensated properly, and we're going to put metrics on it, because I'm tired of rewarding failure in this country and then leaving the taxpayers on the foot, to foot the bill. So yeah, absolutely. Who's that? No. I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it. I don't know, but the Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee, and they're going to go find us a coach. Because wait, I want to hold on. One real quick thing on that. Because here's what y'all reporters need to do. Y'all need to start looking and who represents all these people, like these agents. You know what's interesting? If I'm not mistaken, Woodward's agent, Kelly's agent, the Texas A&M, they're all the same agent. Like, you realize if I would be, I don't know how many sports writers we got here today? Just you. We should have a bunch. Okay? Like, this is ridiculous. Lawyers would be this bored for the way these agents act and the way they're able to represent. In fact, there's no doubt, they may even represent some of the players now. Like, it's really time for the NCAA to put on some guardrails in college sports. Because, and it's fine, we don't need the guardrails. If big billionaires want to spend all that kind of money, no problem. But if I got to go find $53 million from Kevin, it's not going to be a pleasant conversation. I'm just telling you, I know. And I think that that's important as well. Y'all should start looking into that.
Okay. That was Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. You know, I always wondered what happened to Bobby Boucher after his playing days ended. I didn't know he'd grown up to become governor of the state of Louisiana. That's not a parody. That is not a Saturday Night Live skit. That was the actual governor of Louisiana diving into waters with which he is not familiar, obviously. A number of factual errors in his rant. We should point out, Scott Woodward, of course, is, at least as of this moment, the LSU athletics director, considered one of the better ADs in the country. He hired people like Kim Mulkey at LSU. She's won a national championship in women's basketball. Jay Johnson in baseball. He's won 2 College World Series. He also hired Brian Kelly. And as we know, football blots out the sun, particularly in the SEC. So the fact, though, that, and a lot of people have, I mentioned this the other day, a lot of people have talked about Scott Woodward also, when he was at Texas A&M, hired Jimbo Fisher. Now, what Scott Woodward did not do at Texas A&M, because he had already left there for LSU, was give Jimbo Fisher the ridiculous extension that bumped his buyout up into the $75 million range that Texas A&M ended up having to pay after that 9-1 season in 2020. Why you would make any coaching decision based on that completely bizarre season? Not everybody played the same number of games. Not everybody had their full roster ready when they did play. It was a season full of asterisks. But after that season, which was Jimbo's best at A&M, the AD at the time then was Ross Bjork. And as someone in the college sports industry said to me recently, few people have failed upward as successfully as Ross Bjork, because now he's the AD at Ohio State. But it was Ross Bjork who bumped up. Now, look, Scott Woodward gave Jimbo a 10-year, $75 million contract to get him to leave Florida State. So he's on the hook for that. He's not on the hook for the outrageous buyout that A&M paid him. And do you think anyone at A&M cares today, with the Aggies undefeated, ranked number 3 in the country, powering towards an SEC championship game appearance for the first time since they joined the conference, powering toward a playoff appearance for the first time? You think they care with what Mike Elko's doing in his second year, what they had to pay Jimbo to go away? I would guess not. But the governor got that wrong. So Scott Woodward, yes, he's responsible for Brian Kelly at LSU and his contract, and Jimbo Fisher originally at Texas A&M. But we'll give him a pass on the extension. That was Ross Bjork's work, not Scott Woodward's. But I will say, listening to the governor and hearing his passion, I would venture to say that Scott Woodward is not long for LSU. That his tenure, if he is not going to be trusted to hire the next football coach, which is the most important position in the athletic department, in any athletic department, particularly in the SEC, not sure how he can continue as athletics director. But then the governor wasn't content to go off there. He wanted to go off on agents. Well, we should say one agent in particular. He did not name him, but everyone who knows anything about college football knows he was talking about Jimmy Sexton. Okay, first of all, Jimmy Sexton does not represent Brian Kelly. Trace Armstrong does. He's another power agent in college football. So the governor got that wrong. Now, Jimmy Sexton does represent Lane Kiffin, who everybody wants to hire. He does represent Jimbo Fisher. He does represent Nick Saban. He represents a lot of power coaches. Hugh Freeze, Kalen DeBoer, Jimmy Sexton represents them. He and his agency. They also represent players that go on and play in the NFL. I did a big feature on Jimmy right after Nick Saban got the Alabama job and talked about that potential conflict of interest with him representing players and the coaches that they play for at the college level, and then representing them at the NFL level. So it was a different time then, of course, because you didn't have NIL. You couldn't legally pay college players. Now you can. But to blame Jimmy Sexton for doing his job, which is what he does when he gets on the phone and he talks to these athletic directors or members of the Board of Supervisors, as LSU calls them, the Board of Trustees in this state of Alabama, he's trying to get the best deal for his clients. That's called capitalism, isn't it? And if you noticed in Governor Jeff Landry's screed, he endorsed, well, you could tell what his political leaning is when he suggested that he would rather let Donald Trump choose the next LSU coach rather than Scott Woodward. I thought that side of the aisle was all about free enterprise and capitalism. And Jimmy Sexton is one damn good capitalist because he's made a lot of money for himself and an awful lot of his clients. So, first of all, he doesn't represent everybody in the industry. He represents a lot of heavy hitters. So the governor might want to get his facts right on those subjects. And then Governor Landry's screed was roundly ridiculed and lampooned all across social media yesterday. I joined in the fun. I jumped on the bandwagon. So he felt the need to explain himself later on Twitter. Let's look at what he had to say. I think he got a fact or two wrong in his explanation. Let's blow that up full screen, Brendan. Thank you. Governor Landry tweeted, "I want to reiterate, I am not picking the next coach at LSU," to which every LSU fan breathed a sigh of relief. They didn't necessarily believe it, but he's certainly going to have his hand in it based on what we heard yesterday. He's talking about his responsibility to protect the hard-earned tax dollars our citizens pay to the state. Everyone recognizes the tremendous amount of money at stake, money that our citizens could be on the hook for. Okay, time out, Governor. Public money, tax funds are not paying the salary of the LSU football coach. All of these coaches have a basic salary, $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year, that the school pays. The bulk of their $10 million a year deals or their $12 million a year deals or whatever the numbers are come from private funds and donors. So that is wildly incorrect. So his statement, in the absence of an LSU president, and by the way, LSU doesn't have a president. They don't even have an interim president at the time. Advantage Florida in the Kiffin sweepstakes. They at least have an interim president. Protecting our taxpayers and the university we all love was of vital importance. As a father, fan, and a citizen who cares about our players, I have complete faith in Coach Wilson. That's interim coach Frank Wilson, if you didn't know. And that he will rally the boys. Good, interesting choice of noun there. He will rally the boys the rest of the season and make LSU and all of Louisiana proud. Go Tigers. Go, of course, spelled G-E-A-U-X. So even in his explanation, the governor got some facts wrong. Again, taxpayers are not paying these astronomical salaries, nor are they paying the generational wealth that schools are paying out in buyouts for failure to make James Franklin go away at Penn State, $49 million. To make Brian Kelly go away at LSU, $53 million or thereabouts. To make Gus Malzahn go away at Auburn in 2020 or after the 2020 season, $21.5 million. To make Billy Napier go away, something in that neighborhood as well. So that's not coming from taxpayers' pockets. And what's interesting is that press conference, that wasn't meant to be about LSU football. It was about SNAP benefits and what's going to happen at midnight on Friday when funding is supposed to run out for those. We're not getting into politics here, but he couldn't resist talking about LSU football. In the grand tradition of Governor Huey Long back in the day, who was maybe the biggest football fan among all governors, at least until the state of Alabama elects Tommy Tuberville next year, which is going to happen. So the governor didn't get that right. But it didn't stop there, of course, because political football is played all across the SEC. The governor of Georgia chimed in. He obviously was made aware of what was happening with his colleague in Louisiana, and he felt the need to retweet Governor Landry. So let's look at what Governor Brian Kemp of the great state of Georgia had to say. He retweeted a post about Governor Landry's rant and said, "This is a Coach Kirby Smart appreciation tweet." So I'm sure the people in Georgia are thrilled that they have stability and solidity in an elite football coach who they know is not going anywhere else. They're not trying to run him out of town. They're not trying to replace him. They're not dealing with the stuff that the state of Louisiana is dealing with, the state of Florida is dealing with, the state of Pennsylvania, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, Arkansas, ad infinitum. So that just the fact that the governor of Georgia felt compelled, or whoever runs his social media account felt compelled to do that, tells you all you need to know about the SEC. Thankfully, I can report that Governor Kay Ivey, an Auburn graduate, the governor of the great state of Alabama, did not feel the need to get involved in this social media brouhaha, and we heard no comment from Governor Kay Ivey. That will probably change, again, as I said, when Tommy Tuberville, the senior United States Senator from the state of Alabama, he's running for governor next year. He will become the governor of Alabama, given the political leanings of this state. And I can only imagine Tommy Tuberville getting involved in a future coaching search at Alabama or at Auburn. And people will say, well, he should know the territory, right? Well, he got run out of town in Auburn, and he got a $5.1 million parting gift to leave the premises. Even though his people would tell you that he resigned, Auburn still paid his buyout. So you do the math. So this is really fascinating. This whole coaching search madness that is touching LSU and Florida, both, at least we know Florida is all in on Lane Kiffin, or so it seems. There's a lot of thought that LSU will make a hard target search focusing on Kiffin as well. We don't know if Kiffin's going anywhere. Nick Saban opined on that subject and suggested he talked to Chris Lowe of On3 and said, Kiffin might want to stay where he is. He's got a great situation. He's winning there. He's probably going to get in the college football playoff, barring some kind of implosion in November, which did occur at Ole Miss in 2022. Auburn fans will remember this. Auburn made a hard charge at Kiffin, thought they had convinced him, thought he was coming, and then he changed his mind at the last minute. We all know that story, and that's how they ended up with Hugh Freeze, who was a panic hire, according to some, at Auburn, and certainly has not proven his worth yet. And I mentioned the possibility of Saturday evening, and for all of the conspiracy theories out there that some members of the Auburn family have about officiating and how the SEC office has it out for the Tigers, they're playing another night game at home on Saturday. You got to appreciate that, because night games have a far more charged atmosphere everywhere across the SEC in particular, and Auburn gets to play Kentucky at home. And it brought back memories. I saw someone had a hot seat list of current coaches, and they had Mark Stoops at Kentucky #1 and Hugh Freeze at Auburn #2. And it got me to thinking and flashing back to 2016. If you'll recall, Les Miles was on the hot seat at LSU at that time, as was Gus Malzahn at Auburn. And they played about the 5th game of the season, 4th game of the season, something like that, in Auburn. It was an absolute travesty of an offensive attempt at offensive football on both sides. Auburn, I think, may have kicked 6 field goals, and Auburn was winning. The last play of the game, the attempted last play of the game, LSU throws what looked like the game-winning touchdown pass, but the snap came just after the clock expired. So Auburn won the game, and the very next day, Les Miles was fired, and Ed Orgeron took over as interim head coach. Then he got the full-time job. That's why interim coaches can be dangerous. He did enough to get the full-time job, and a couple of years later, he had one of the greatest rosters we've ever seen, led by Joe Burrow, and they won the national championship. And apparently, Ed Orgeron wants to get back into coaching. I'm sure you've heard this by now. He's made it clear he'd love to be the LSU coach again. Unfortunately for him, there are people at LSU who remember some of the reasons why he was asked to leave LSU. So I don't think he has a shot at the job. Now, he has also said, Ed O, that is, that if Lane Kiffin takes another job, say LSU, he'd love to go with him and work for him as his assistant, as a defensive line coach, maybe defensive coordinator. I don't know if Coach O's ever been a coordinator. I know he's been a very good defensive line coach and a killer recruiter. We all know that. He'd take the Florida job, or he'd probably join the Florida staff if Lane Kiffin went there, if Lane Kiffin wanted him to go with him. So there have even been people in the city of Birmingham and around the UAB program who suggested that UAB should think seriously about hiring Coach O as the next UAB head coach. Please, dear Lord, how much fun would that be to have Ed O here in Birmingham recruiting against Alabama, which might bring to life some of the fears of the more paranoid members and older members of the Alabama Crimson Nation had when UAB started a football program against the wishes of a lot of Board of Trustee members. So we don't know what Ed O's going to do, but he certainly wants to get back and coach again somewhere. But we mentioned Saban, and the most fascinating aspect of the LSU search. Would Nick Saban coach again? Where would he coach again if he were so inclined? And I know from getting to know Saban while he was in Tuscaloosa, he still to this day has great affection for LSU and his time there. He made some really good lifelong friends, he and his wife, Terry. I did a really big takeout the first time Nick Saban went back to Baton Rouge with Alabama in 2008. I talked to Board of Supervisors members. I talked to at LSU. I talked to big boosters at LSU who were close friends with Saban when he was there. And that didn't change because he changed and went to the Dolphins first and then landed at Alabama. And part of that story was the night before the game, they had a bonfire to burn Nick Saban in effigy. I almost lost some eyebrows. I got a little too close to the flames attending that in my reporting, trying to be on the scene at that bonfire. That's another sign of it just means more in the SEC, where they hold bonfires to burn the former coach in effigy because he had the audacity to take another job in the conference against your biggest rival for SEC supremacy. So what would Nick Saban do? If you're LSU, and look, a number of people have already said this. I've said this in different forums. If I'm LSU, I'm making the call. Well, I'm probably calling Jimmy Sexton first. And I want to know, is there any chance that Nick Saban would walk away from his cushy existence now on College Game Day, weekly sit-downs with Pat McAfee, running his car dealerships, all the different things that he does? Would he walk away from that to get on the field one more time, to try to win one more national championship? He already has 7, 6 at Alabama, 1 at LSU. Would he return to the place where he really came to prominence as a head coach? Why not ask? All he can say is no. And given the fact that Saban won a national championship in his 4th year in Baton Rouge, 2003, and Les Miles, his predecessor, won a national championship in his 3rd year at LSU, and Ed Orgeron, who followed Miles, as we said, after Miles was fired after losing a loser leave town game against Gus Malzahn at Auburn, In his third year as the full-time head coach, Ed Orgeron won a national championship in Baton Rouge. So what if Governor Landry puts in a call to Nick Saban? I'm guessing he's not going to call Jimmy Sexton. That probably wouldn't go well. What if he puts in a call to Nick Saban and says, Coach, give us 4 years. We'll give you $20 million a year. And if you win a natty, we'll give you another 20 as a bonus. And then you can ride off into the sunset. We'll build a statue of you. We'll put your name. Can you put his name on the stadium? Can you imagine, as insane as LSU football, SEC football has been over time, it would be so fitting for Nick Saban, after leading an Alabama team into Tiger Stadium year after year after year and crushing the hopes of LSU fans, the hopes that he raised from the dead while he was their coach. Can you imagine him leading an LSU team into Bryant-Denny Stadium to play against Alabama on Nick Saban Field? That's right. The field at Alabama is named for Nick Saban. Alabama's paying him $500,000 a year as some kind of consultant, ambassador. I don't know what the exact title is. I don't know exactly what he does for that paycheck, but can you imagine? Of course you can imagine it. It's the SEC. I don't think he would do it. I think he's truly done. I think he truly enjoys his life now more than he ever has. But if there were one place that Nick Saban might leave television and leave his semi-retirement to coach again, I think it would be LSU. Don't think it will happen, but again, this is SEC football. All bets are off. And on that subject, one last thought on Auburn and Hugh Freeze. And obviously, we have hammered this subject because I think he is not the guy to get Auburn out of the ditch that it's in. He didn't put it there, but he hasn't pulled Auburn out of it either. And don't be fooled by the win over Arkansas, in which, against one of the worst defenses in the country, Auburn's offense scored one offensive touchdown. And even this week, Hugh Freeze said he's not sure if Ashton Daniels or Jackson Arnold's going to start at quarterback on Saturday against Kentucky because it's really close and he can't really tell a difference between them. Was he not there at the game Saturday? Did he not watch Jackson Arnold throw a pick six? Ashton Daniels hasn't done that. Did he not watch Ashton Daniels at least manage the operation successfully in the second half as Auburn kicked a bunch of field goals to beat Arkansas and get its first SEC win of the season? Was he not there? I think I saw him on the sideline. But one more thought about that. There is a school of thought at Auburn, or among Auburn people, some Auburn people, that you cannot fire Hugh Freeze this year unless the bottom drops out, unless he loses to Kentucky and Vanderbilt and Alabama, maybe even Mercer. I don't know. Anything's possible, right? But that unless the bottom drops out, you can't fire Hugh Freeze. You can't jump on the coaching carousel. Not this year. Not with those other jobs open. Not with Florida looking for a coach and LSU looking for a coach and Arkansas looking for a coach and so many other schools across the country. And who knows what other jobs will come open or what domino effect will take place when a sitting coach leaves one job to take another. You can't do that. Hugh Freeze is close. He's put together a better roster. There's more talent at Auburn now than when he arrived. That is true. I have one answer to that. If you are Auburn University, you're one of the top 15 college football programs of all time, and you don't think you can compete on the coaching carousel, how in the world are you going to compete on the field? Food for thought. That's all I've got to say about that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you are watching this episode on YouTube, we encourage you to like the episode, subscribe to the channel. We are definitely growing. We also encourage you to check out all of the great content, all of the great shows on the Sidelines.live network, piloted by executive producer Brendan Martin, the best in the business. We especially encourage you to check out our sponsor, Money Management Services. You'll be glad you did. That's all for me today. I'm Kevin Skarbinski. This is ScarboKnows. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. See ya.
Since 1992, Money Management Services in Birmingham has provided individuals and business owners with trusted, fee-only financial advice. We're more than advisors, we're your financial family. From retirement planning to tax strategies and estate planning, our team builds personalized wealth management plans tailored to your life. At Money Management Services, we treat you like family, because when you walk through our doors, you become part of ours.